Hello, please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Good morning. My name is Erin Flannery, and I'm the producer of today's event. I am delighted to introduce the Vice President of American Cinema Editors. Last year, he was on this panel as an Oscar nominee, and today he is here to open our program. Please join me in welcoming Kevin Tent.
Thank you, Erin. I spoke to Erin earlier this week, and she's been doing this for 25 years. Good morning, and welcome to the 25th Annual Invisible Artist Panel. We are happy to celebrate this milestone with you today at the Regal LA Live Theater here in downtown Los Angeles. We want to give a big thank you to our IAVA sponsors, our platinum sponsor, Blackmagic Design. Thank you, guys. Our gold sponsors, LucidLink and the Motion Picture Editors Guild. And LucidLink is sponsoring our live stream right now, so thank you very much. Our silver sponsor, Regal Cinemas, thank you. Plus a thank you to the rest of our sponsors who made this event possible. Thank you to Jenny and ACE headquarters. Did my voice just squeak? I think it did. Thank you to all the ACE Angels, Alan Baumgarten, Alfonso Cuarón, Aaron, and thank you to all the audience members. Oh, and all our volunteers, thank you. And thank you to all our audience members for their contributions to the ACE Fund for Wildlife Relief. And now, a brief bit about the origin of IAVA. It was founded in 2001 by editor Alan Holtzman to spotlight the year's Oscar-nominated films. Alan, are you here today? If you are, please stand up. Okay, I think Alan's not here. But Alan's vision and effort brought together a dedicated group of ACE staff, board members, and volunteers to host the inaugural IAVA event at the Egyptian Theater. It was an instant success and is going strong now for 25 years. Several of those early panels have been now recut and posted on our website by Alan. Check out the section from the vault. Today we are honored to have nominees Nick Emerson, Myron Kirsten, ACE, and David Jansko, HSC. HSC is the Hungarian Society for Film and Television Editors. Juliet Welfling is currently on a flight from LA from Paris and will not be here. And Sean Baker was also unable to come this morning. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce our moderator. Her career spans over 30 years as an editor in both feature films and television. In her feature career, she has edited effects-heavy films like Doctor Strange and Sky Captain of the World, family-friendly films like Charlotte's Web and Beverly Hills Chihuahua, and anti-family films like last year's Strays. She was nominated for an Eddie for her work in the miniseries Uprising. She's got 2 Emmy nominations under her belt for Houdini and the pilot episode of Miss Marvel. She has been our vice president for the last 4 years and is currently our president. Please welcome rock star editor and all-around fantastic human being, Sabrina Plisco, ACE. And now I'd like to introduce our editors for Best Nominated Pictures. David Janschko, HSC. For The Brutalist, for Conclave, Nick Emerson. And for Wicked Part 1, Myron Kirsten, ACE. Have fun, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin. Sorry, these microphones are super sensitive, so I'm going to do my best to hold the phone, and I'm not texting. I am looking at some notes on my phone, but welcome, everybody. And again, 25 years we've been doing this. Thank you to everybody who's made it possible. It's really a great event, and look at the turnout. I'm really thrilled to be here at this new venue, and hopefully we'll learn something about our wonderful nominees this year. So in order to get to know you guys a little bit better, I'd like to just hear a little bit about you. David, I know you are from Hungary, which is not known for its big film industry, but apparently there is one. So tell us about the industry.
I mean, in Europe, Hungary is actually pretty well known. I mean, it's mostly art house that comes out of Hungary. A lot of Cannes award-winning and Venice award-winning films come out of the country. Plus, there's a huge so-called service sector. So Dune was shot in Hungary, Blade Runner, a lot of American productions go there to shoot today. So it's a very vibrant industry. Less so in these days in terms of local productions. What
about post-production?
Well, post-production, we're, I think, probably the last place in the world that has 2 working film labs. So post-production is pretty vibrant too. Less foreign productions come back. It's mostly for local.
Awesome. And can you tell us, all of you, I'd like to know, was there a point in your lives where you had that aha moment where you discovered editing and discovered it was a job potentially and that you wanted to pursue it? Do you have that moment of recognition, and can you tell us about that?
Actually, no. I knew from the get-go that I wanted to be an editor. Although my parents tried really everything in their power to keep me away from this industry, both of them are in film. My dad was a director, and my mom was an editor, but they didn't send me to law school. So I have a law degree. I have a political science degree. I have a communications degree. And when I was done with all this, I was like, can I go to film school now? And in Hungary, it's like the Danish film school. It is specialized, meaning that you already go to the film school saying, I want to be an editor. And it was a class of 9 people, and 2 of us, both film brats, knew what editing was. So that was our luxury, that we actually knew from childhood what editing actually means and how it is, for me at least, the most special part in our industry. Because we are the ones that create the film, and we know what it is that we're creating and why. So there was 2 of us that actually wanted to be an editor. Everybody was like, I want to be a director, a cinematographer, but okay, fine, I'll go do editing. But no, I always wanted to be an editor.
And was it your mom that inspired you?
She's the one that tried to talk me out of it the most, yes.
But your admiration for her won out, and you became...
I mean, look, when you're a little kid running around the Steenbeck and playing around with, like, where did you take that frame? Bring it back to me? Yeah, I mean, it's fun.
I hear you actually own quite a few Steenbecks.
Yes, 7.
Wow. Awesome. And now we all know where they are in the world.
Yeah, none of them work, and I can't have them fixed. So if Steenbeck's listening to this, please.
Wonderful. Nick, how about you? Uh-oh.
Hello.
There we are.
I can actually pin it down to one shot in a film. I remember, like, I was always watching lots and lots of films as a teenager, and I remember I watched, at about the age of 13, I watched Taxi Driver, and I mean, goodness knows why my parents were allowing me to watch that so young, but I remember seeing this one shot, and it was when Robert De Niro goes into the offices to approach Sybil Shepherd, and then there's this overhead shot that looks down on the table, and it's just a slow motion of his hand going across it. I remember it was like a lightning bolt, because I suddenly realized that actually, somebody made a choice to do something, to make that happen. And before, it was just really just watching films and enjoying them. So that moment when I understood there was a job or something behind it, So that was how, And then from then it was just, trying to find a way to get into it.
And so you grow up in Ireland, yes?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I started off in television news, actually. So, I mean, I wanted to be a cinematographer. So I was, and I ended up, as a runner on a short film and, really just hanging around the camera team the whole time. And then sort of at the end of the shoot, I just begged the producers, could you give me, something else to do? And they said, why don't you go in and sit in the edit of the short film? And I was, when I got in, I was like, this is nice and warm, and but I really appreciated the delicacy of it, I suppose, and just the construction and the jigsaw. So from that, I ended up getting into news editing, and it was around about the time in Northern Ireland when the peace process was happening. So there was a lot of news and a lot of news to be cut. So I was there in my sort of early 20s, being able to witness that, which was amazing. And then from that, I transitioned into documentaries. And then from documentaries, like, I was always really still interested in films. So I tried to get as much short films, experience as I could. And then I was, lucky enough to, to connect with a couple of directors, and they made this short, and it did well. They got a feature, and they somehow persuaded the producers to let me edit it, and there you go.
At what point did you make the transition from Ireland to, you said you live in the UK now, correct?
Yeah, I live in London. I've been there for about 11 years. So I was, working a lot in Dublin and working a lot in Belfast. And one thing that happened in Northern Ireland was when the peace process agreement was signed, a lot of money came in, and so there was production started to pick up, and there was studios built and so on. So I was really lucky that I was able to take advantage of that, sort of, get a few film credits under my belt in a very small sort of pool of people. And then eventually it got to the point where I was commuting to London to do work. And then at a certain point, you just sort of, you just say, I got to go and make an effort here. So, yeah.
And David, you said you were based in Hungary, but you travel the world depending on where the job takes you, correct?
Ooh, yes. Well, wherever the director is. Our last years, Ilka, what was it? I mean, we've been everywhere. We cut Monkey Man here. We cut The Brutalist in New York and London. And the film we're currently working on is Berlin, but then next week or the week after, we're going to Sydney. So I'm not home a lot.
I know some of you think that sounds glamorous, and it is for a while, but it's exhausting. Myron, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and when that spark happened for you? He's got the trick microphone, apparently.
Editors working together. First of all, wow, look at all these people. I mean, this is incredible. This panel is like amazing, so thank you. Yeah, I mean, I fell into it. I didn't exactly fall into it. I loved making collages in art school, and I found that picking up pieces of random things and making new pieces of artwork really appealed to me. And then I thought also, because I did photography in college, that I also wanted to be a cinematographer, and moved to New York and was a PA, and I worked in Times Square in the middle of winter trying to lock it off, and thought this was horrible. And I froze my butt off, and I took the tapes to the office where 8 editors were working on the show called TV Nation, and I saw these incredible alchemists, magicians working, making the coolest documentaries, and I loved it so much, and I was like, okay, I think that maybe that is something that I can do, because that relates to what it's like to just pick up things and make something new out of it, and I was just really inspired by them, and so I then became a post PA, and then I worked my butt off. I didn't know how to turn on a computer at that moment, and I learned how to turn on a computer, and then I learned how to become an assistant editor, and I digitized all night, and they all started hiring me, and I learned from them on other documentaries and then feature films. I worked with my mentor, Jim Lyons, who cut Todd Haynes movies for many years, and I just learned from the best. And then when I got the chance to start making my own shorts or industrials or VH1 promos or industrials or wedding videos, I just became more and more in love with the craft, and so my mentors inspired me, and of course film inspired me, and so I just fell in love with it, and here I am.
And you began in New York, correct?
Yes.
Did you go to film school as well, or?
No, I went to UMass Amherst, and I studied fine arts. I did printmaking and painting and photography, and yeah, my film school was basically the streets of New York. You know, it was a great time because it was the 90s in New York, and there was this incredible indie film scene going on, and I just fell into like Killer Films, who was making just really amazing things, and you've got some experience with them, and yeah, it's just an incredible place to be growing up in and learning from the best.
So, much to your point, David, I also wanted to be a cinematographer. So you are outnumbered, but I wanted to do that from 8th grade on. So it's funny that we've all ended up where we are for a reason. As you can see, Sean Baker and Juliet Welfling are not here today. Sadly, they are en route to make the Academy Awards show tomorrow, but they attended the César Awards in Paris last night, I believe, and so they can't be with us. But Juliet was lovely enough to jump on a Zoom with me earlier this week. So we have a couple clips from her today as if she were here in the room. So if we could now play Juliet's clip number 1, and we'll stay seated up here for this one. Let's see how this goes.
I think maybe I discovered editing after having started it, you know, like, because when I started when I was very young and I didn't go to film school. So I don't know if I was really aware of what the job was, honestly. I didn't really know, but I had kind of a feeling that this would be a job that I would like. And it turned out that I really loved it, and I'm still doing it. And it's been so many years, I can't even talk about all these years. But yeah, so I guess I discovered while doing it, and when I really and I've been an assistant for a long time. Then I've been a sound editor, because at that time it was 35 millimeters, so it was not as you know. It was, I mean, I don't know how it's in the US, but in France, it was at that time kind of the, you know, the regular way to become an editor. You were first an intern, then an assistant editor, then you would become a sound editor, then you would become, and this took me years. But I guess I really started loving it when I became an editor. I liked being an assistant, but yeah, obviously my real pleasure was when I started, and that's when I discovered that I really liked it. Well, I know, no, I think I discovered, no, it's not true. I think I discovered from start that I liked
Yeah.
it. And I never changed, and I still love it as much as the first day.
And how did you find yourself in the cutting room to begin with? Did you have family or just?
Yeah, well, I was like 18, and I don't know why suddenly I did. One of my a friend of my mother's was an editor, and we met her once in the restaurant, and I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. But and of course I was like, I was going to the movies all the time. I loved the movie. I loved movies, and I knew I would love to work in this field. But also I was very shy, so I figured maybe editing is good for me because you're like remote in a room, and then you don't have to see all these people from the film crew. Maybe that would be good for me. I don't really, and I started because yeah, I knew her, and then I did an internship in a lab, in the lab, and then I met in this lab. There were also editing rooms, so I met some editors, and one of them he hired me as an intern, and that was my how I started. Kind of good luck, I would say.
Yeah. So you'll hear that over and over again as you hear people's different stories. There's just no one way to get into the industry and into the editing chair. Everybody has a unique story. They're all interesting. You just have to be passionate about it and make your way to into a cutting room. And I don't think you'll ever leave. So it's pretty special. And as you can see from the panelists that we've got this year, the world is getting smaller, and we have, it seems in the past few years, editors being nominated from all over the world. So it's wonderful that we are seeing movies from all over the world, and we can support each other and come together, because we don't often get to hang out together like this and talk about editing. That's why this is special, and thank you guys for being here today to let us do that. We have some clips for you from each of the movies, and then we can talk about the clips a little bit. So we're going to start off, Myron, with your movie, Wicked Part 1. I'd love to hear about how you became a part of this movie, which obviously begs the question of how you became attached to your wonderful director, John Chu.
Yeah, so John and I met about 8 years ago on a blind Skype date. We fell in love with each other on Crazy Rich Asians. And yeah, it was a real bromance. And when you go to Malaysia for the first time in your life, and you're working on this amazing movie, and you're meeting your brother making things, it's really amazing. And then that happened to turn out okay, and then we worked on In the Heights together, and that was an incredible experience working in New York. And I really wanted to work on a musical prior to that, so that was a dream come true. And then after that, he said, "I think Wicked's the next one," and so I was pretty excited, of course, to come on something this big, because I'm a huge fan of musicals. I'm a huge fan of this musical, the Broadway musical. I'm a huge fan of Wizard of Oz. I love fantasy. I love comedy. I love melodrama, drama. It had everything in the script, and I was just really excited and intimidated by the scale of it, because as soon as I was hired, I was walking onto these sets, and it looked like I was walking into a theme park, and it was nothing I'd ever experienced before. We were really building Oz in London, and but it was a dream come true. I'd always wanted to work on a Universal film when I was a kid. I'd be on the other side of the tram ride, and watching a mechanical shark murder a fisherman over and over again, and I just fell in love with movies. And to be on the other side of that tram, making, an exec said to me that, Wicked is the biggest movie the studio's ever made. And I was like, what? You're Universal. How is that possible? And then, so it was really intimidating, but also really inspiring to meet this bar, this impossible bar that John had set for all of us. Anyways, I was really proud to be a part of it.
Just to give you guys a little perspective, the spectacle of this movie is humongous. And I know I heard an interview where John said he wanted to make an homage to the old Hollywood genre of movie, and it's definitely done that. I hope it sparks more interest in movie making. But the sets I heard there were like 7 or 8 sets, something like that, and they were like a football or 2 football fields big each, right? Am I right?
Correct. Yeah. We built our own back lot. There wasn't a big enough. They were the biggest stages that had ever been built in London, and this is where they shot Star Wars, and it was incredible just to go to this. They had this giant turf farm that they built, Emerald City and Munchkinland and Shiz, and then we had sound stages through 3 different studio backlots, and so yeah, it was just immense, the scale of it. And I have also a love for films like Empire Strikes Back, and then of course The Wizard of Oz, and then The Sound of Music, and trying to meld all these things together. John said to us that he wanted to make The Lord of the Rings meets The Wizard of Oz, and I was like, okay, how hard could that be? But then he said he wanted to make the greatest love story that's ever been told, and that was really inspiring to me to make something that was had this giant scale to it, but also intimacy, and at the end of the day, it was all about this relationship as much as it was about the spectacle of it, and that and the past films that I've really loved working on was all about character and relationships and the intimacy, and so being able to bring that part of carving out performance into something of this scale was the real trick and dream to get right, and then we knew if we could have people fall in love with these characters, have fun with the silences as well as the big loud musical moments, that would be great.
Well, you're a master at that, and I went into seeing this movie and not expecting that I was going to be crying and digging for Kleenex out of my purse in the middle of the movie. I didn't expect it, and it was amazingly done and a beautiful job, and I really love it and love that aspect. You've got the real intimate moments with a huge spectacle, and I mean that's movie making and storytelling. Do you want to set up this particular clip, or should we just watch it? Or
this clip is not very quiet. It's actually very loud, but I'm proud of it because every single time I watch it, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go, And I mentioned Empire Strikes Back because I remember watching the end of that movie and just oh my God, I cannot wait to see the next one. And I just wanted that same feeling at the end of Wicked, and so trying to get that right basically took 2 years, and so I'm really proud that every time I watch it, I'm like, okay, this is exactly what we set out to do, and here we are.
And with that, let's roll the clip of Wicked.
Believe nothing she says. She has stolen our Willery. She is evil.
Her green skin is but an outward manifestorium of her twisted nature. This distortion, this repulsion, this wicked witch.
Nobody in all of Oz, no wizard that there is or was, is ever gonna bring me down. I hope you're happy. She's wicked. Kill her.
Well, as Myron said, fuck yeah. It's truly amazing. It's such a spectacle, and I'm sure it was just probably fun to go to work most days, I'm thinking, mostly. Talk a little bit, this movie has so many things going for it. The thing that I love about this clip is it illustrates how in the middle of a climax like this, you can stop and slow down time. And all of everybody's movies here, you know, we see that that commonality in all these movies. But that's what makes it so special. But talk about your approach to how you cut this movie and this clip.
Fear. That's. I mean, seriously, it's you stare at this empty timeline and you never know where to start with any of this, and but then you just start piecing together performance based on Cynthia, who's incredible. She's singing live, in these harnesses, and so starting with her always helps. And starting with your actor always helps. Just making choices, but yeah, I mean. What I love about the ending the most is that, or all of Defying Gravity, starting and stopping the song for these intimate moments, and we're kind of messing with the audience, you know, their expectations. Even when in the original Broadway show, when she says it's me, and earlier when she's jumping out the window, you could see the audience; they're about to like raise up their hands because in the Broadway show. That's when the climax of the song starts. Instead, John had this idea of her free-falling and then having to see her younger self in order to earn this next moment in the song. And I just love that. I loved messing with the expectations, and there's this constant restraint. We use the word restraint a lot while making Wicked, even though we had all the toys available to us. We could make any CG animal we wanted, we could build any building we wanted, but we use the word restraint where we could and mess with the audience and build anticipation for the next climax of the song. And so we kept doing that over and over again. Throughout the whole movie, we'd work with just messing with the audience's expectations. And then you don't want to do it so much where they start rebelling against you. Even at test screenings, they were just like, you can't do that. You can't break up the song like that. We're like, well, we're gonna do it. And but what I think the audience didn't realize is that the more we did, the more we built up this sort of climax. The more we could sort of build to the very ending and dramatically, the more that you'd want it more and more. So that word restraint was something we would just use as our compass. And then, of course, I love this sort of moments, the sort of like Shawshank Redemption natural moment with the exploding glass and stuff. Like I just had all the fun things to just build. Jeff Goldblum like looking out at the wizard, like a Jurassic Park moment, and it's just you get to do all these really fun tropey things, but we get to hit the refresh button on it a little bit. And then, even the cape at the end, I had pitched John and our VFX supervisor, Pablo Hellman. I said, I think that there's an opportunity to grow the cape the same way as they do it in the Broadway show. And Pablo he's amazing, but he's like, I don't understand how the cape just grows. I was like, well, yeah, it just grows. And we literally use the word like, it's like a painting hanging in the Louvre, and we wanted to she has to feel like an entity, and has to meet the most iconic moment in Broadway musical history, this war cry, and then the last fuck you to the audience was not ending there, because that's where the song ends in the Broadway show. But even at assembly stage, I had worked with my music editors, Jack Dolman and Catherine Wilson. Oh, by the way, a lot of my crew's in the audience, so I'm just, I'm really deeply thankful for them, because you can't make a film like this without the Avengers of assistant editors and music editors and VFX editors.
How big is your crew?
Laura, how big is it? Is it like 8, 9? Yeah. 8.
It's a fairly big film crew, as
Yeah.
you'll hear from others, that, it's about as big as it gets, yeah.
But I asked Jack and Catherine to extend the music after the war cry, and Jack's like, they're never going to let you do this. And I'm like, I know, but so I said to him, Catherine, I don't remember who, but I said, can we try the 2001 timpanis? And he was just like, yeah, I'll try them. So he was like, okay, so he grabbed the 2001, dum, 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 and then I could extend the song. And then we hadn't shot, because of the strike, we hadn't shot a lot of Cynthia singing in the air towards the end of the movie, and so I was able to extend it, and then they shot it. But anyways, I had to make it work musically, and John saw it, and he was like, "Okay, that's a choice." But then he fell in love with it, and then Stephen Schwartz, of course, who created the music, loved it. So it was really fun to have all these elements of messing with the anticipation, the audience, using the word restraint, but also like just extending this thing, just kept stretching it out to just build it and just make you want to hold your breath and just make you feel in love with cinema again. Just remember seeing Back to the Future, Empire Strikes Back, and just being in these theaters and just being so excited about movies when I was a kid. Just wanted people to have that moment, and just to keep building and building and building to this climax was. And again, fear. We were terrified that if it didn't work, we just had to go guns blazing all the way through.
It's a wonderful thing when you've got the trust of your director and you can do something ballsy like that and be applauded for it. Maybe not at first, the shock of the eye roll, like okay, but to have them really stop and think about your ideas and what we all contribute to projects. It's what we all strive for and what we all love about the relationship of working with our directors. And there's never a bad idea, just some ideas make it into the movie and some don't, but it's all how we pitch it, right? We are salespeople for the ideas that we come up with. One other little bit of trivia I just want to share before we move on is the length of the shoot. You guys shot 2 movies back to back. Again, something that's not all that common. So talk about how many days that was. And
I think it was 155 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really long shoot. The good news is I had some experience with television, so having long shoots of multi-episodes. So it just felt like it was just a one big, mini-series, I guess. Yeah, so Laura and Ed was with me most of the time during the shoot, and we had a UK crew during the shooting. But yeah, it was daunting because we had like all the months planned out, so it was like 8 months, and I'm just like looking at it, I was just like, oh my God, how are we gonna ever get to the other end? And I remember going to Laura, it's like, how are we gonna do this? You're like, just one cut at a time, It's like
Exactly. And it's not like you shot movie 1 and then movie 2. It's block shooting, right? So
exactly.
it's all
Every other
location.
day, it was like, what movie are we in? Like, they just did this, and now we're over there, and so it was pretty confusing. But yeah, you just, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you just have to pace yourself and try. I've talked a little bit about this in the past. Is just trusting the process, and it's no different if it's a 40-day, 20-day shoot or an 8-month shoot. You just have to trust the process of just taking in the dailies and cutting it, and then it's going to get better over time. At first, you're just shaking your head and looking at the empty timeline and just, I'm never going to be able to get there. I'm never going to be able to make this, and then you just trust, okay, let me just start from the beginning. Let's go through it, and it's going to get better and better. And try not to think it like, how am I going to get to the 8th month without killing myself? So.
Yep, one day at a time. That's all any of us do these days. All right, we're going to transition into watching Amelia Perez clip, and I have a little clip from Juliet that will lead us into it, and then some of her comments afterwards. So we're just going to watch the whole chunk. But the one thing that I want to say is I love to watch movies without knowing anything about them before I see it. It's my favorite way to watch anything. And that's how I saw Amelia Perez. Literally, I think I saw it about 2 days after I went to a screening to see Wicked. And I had no idea it was a musical. And it started, I'm like, what the fuck is this? I couldn't believe it. And I was so excited because I thought in a couple of days, I saw 2 different musicals on each end of the spectrum. And I was so happy because I love musicals, and I just love the fact that they're a great way to tell the story if they're done well, and they're both done very well. And I just think what a great year for movies that 2 musicals are up here and nominated, and I'm thrilled about that. So without further ado, let's start with Juliet clip 2. We're going to go right into her movie clip and then right into Juliet clip 3. So we'll see you after all that. So my next question is how you became attached to this project, which probably for you means how did you form your relationship with Jacques, because you're director, because you've been working together quite a while.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. I've been working with him since his first feature. I met him because he was an assistant editor just like me when we were in our 20s. That's how we met. We were friends. We were working in the same studio, and we became very close friends. And he told me, well, and then he became a screenwriter. And then, because his father was a very famous screenwriter in France, very, very famous in France. So he became a screenwriter, starting with his father, and then by his own. His father's movies were very different from what Jack does. And then he became a director, and he told me, when I'll direct my first movie, you'll cut it. And I was like, okay, yeah. It happened. So since then, I've been involved in all his projects. So it's not a question for me. There's no question. I'm not going to miss. We can't. I mean, I wouldn't. I would hate him to hire someone else. But I think he would hate me to not to turn down, you say, one of his projects. No, he wouldn't admit it. I think so. Yeah, there's no point. As soon as he does something, and besides, I mean, I love what he does, so I would be stupid not to go for it. Yeah. So I got involved in this project from the start, when he started writing it, which was like, I think, in 2019, and he shot in 2023. So it was a long time ago.
So how long were you on the project altogether?
Altogether, a year.
A year.
A year I started from day one of shooting, or maybe day two, and I ended the last day of mixing. So which was just before Cannes Festival. We were already like a few days before, and so I really did the whole, because that's also something that happens in France, and I hope doesn't happen in the US. Is like the editors now, they leave before. Once they're done, we start sound now. Many movies, they start sound after the image is over, and the editor, production gets rid of them. Which I think is totally insane, because the editor is the one, I think you'll agree with me, who knows the movie, who really
Better
knows.
than anyone, yeah.
Yeah. And you have been cutting many sounds, you have been cutting many temp scores and scores in your cut, and I mean, well, anyway, so on this movie, I insist on all movies I cut to be there until the end, which is a privilege now. And so it was a year altogether. Yeah.
Señora Emilia Pérez. Emilia Pérez. Señora Emilia Pérez. Mucho gusto. Soy la señora Emilia Pérez. Emilia Pérez. Emilia Pérez. Emilia Pérez.
Oh, it seemed forever stopped today. All the lonely hearts in London caught a plane and flew away. The best women are married, the handsome and the gay, the field of pride.
I wouldn't particularly say that, but in Mexico, words like yes.
What's the dirty on Maxwell?
I think that he will sign by Monday. He's a bit mercurial, but give him time.
Mercurial? What do you mean?
Today he says yes, tomorrow he'll say no. By Monday, I think he's gonna say yes.
Sounds like someone I know.
Touché.
Are you English?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm not English. Why?
No, because you have something special, something different. You are pretty. Sorry.
I'm Mexican.
Really?
Yes.
Yo también.
No mames. ¿De dónde?
De Monterrey.
You want to switch seats? Maybe you can talk.
Yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, my friend. Ya no los hacen como estos,
No,
¿eh?
no, para nada. No, yo soy de Veracruz. Bueno, nací en la República Dominicana, pero sí, estudié en México.
Qué buena onda.
Ay, me da gusto hablar español.
¿Extrañas México?
¿Yo? ¿Sabes qué? No, en realidad no. Algunas veces, pero siempre soñé con viajar y vivir en diferentes lugares. ¿Y tú?
No, yo hace un buen que ando de acá para allá. Hasta lo norteño, perdí.
Se oye. ¿Y con quién andas aquí?
Con Simon.
Ah.
Él se encarga de mis asuntos en Europa.
Con Simon. ¿Sabes que de hecho Simon y yo... ¿Eres tú?
Mingo.
Mierda.
Tengo mis negocios en Londres.
No te hagas pendeja. ¿Mandaste a alguien a rastrearme?
A nadie, tranquila.
No reconozco tu voz.
¿Solo mi voz?
No me digas que viniste por casualidad, que pasabas por aquí así nada más. No me digas que viniste por casualidad, no me digas que viniste por casualidad. Dime que viniste a borrar el pasado, a callar al último puto testigo molesto yo. Por casualidad, no me digas que viniste por casualidad. Dime que viniste hasta aquí a matarme, para hacer la limpieza, para que nadie se dé cuenta quién fuiste y sepa lo que sé. No me digas que viniste por casualidad. Por casualidad.
No, Rita, no vine por casualidad. No vine tampoco por amistad. Agradecerte otra vez, a echarte más flores. No, Rita, no vine por casualidad. No, Rita, no vine por casualidad. No vine a mirar en tu mirada la sorpresa más grande de tu vida. Es ella, no es ella, sí es ella. No vine para verme en el espejo, ni a contarte en mi vida tampoco.
¿Qué estás haciendo
Cambié
aquí?
de piel de cuerpo, que cabrón me lo yo, pero que vale la pena, que soy feliz, que soy yo. No, Rita, no vine por nada de eso. No, Rita, no vine por casualidad. Puedes huir, correr, no te detengo, pero tal vez un día entenderás lo que es cambiar de vida y dejarlo todo atrás. Vine a pedirte algo
por casualidad.
Necesito que traigas a mis hijos de regreso conmigo a México. No puedo vivir sin ellos. Te lo suplico.
Well, it's the beginning of the second part of the movie. I mean, the beginning of the second part is the scene when they are in this London restaurant. But to me, it's like rebirth, you know, and like what Emilia, well, what I imagine. But I mean, what Emilia always wanted, and I wanted this. I mean, in this hospital scene, I thought. Well, I thought. I mean, it was shot like this, you know, but that we needed to feel her, that she was suffering, her body was suffering, but also it needed to be very soft, kind of, because you know, like in this scene there is a voice, a singing voice, very, very soft. I don't know how the word in English, very, and very high pitched and very soft. And to me, I had this idea because I figured it's like Emilia is waking up in as a woman. That's what she always dreamt to be, and it's kind of what she has in her head, this singing, or I don't know what story I told myself, but this was really, really important to me, this singing and all these sounds mixed that I had done no, I mean, it was not as well done, obviously, but all this was already in the cuts. All these sound, these muffling sounds, or you say, or I don't know, at the beginning, and this song very clear, and the curtains, not the curtains, I don't know how you call them, is the first shot in the film that's daylight, because all the movie before this is night. It's all shot at night, and when she wakes up, it becomes, there is how do you say, the shades, and all this was I don't know. It's more instinctive than something else. But I try to put myself in her position, you know, which obviously I cannot because I haven't done any transition. But I try to put myself in her emotional way, and that's how I did it. I don't remember your question now, but it was it.
Yeah, no, just what the section of the movie, and then when the discovery of Rita
Yeah, and the discovery of
recognizes
Rita.
you.
Yeah. So, and then there is this scene where it started in London. Well, you know, it was pretty much planned in shooting because when she meets Rita, it's like a norm kind of a regular scene, very like in a restaurant, very fancy restaurant. This music from Robbie Williams, etc. And then all the lights goes down when Rita recognizes Manitas, who has become Emilia, and so it's pretty much already set up, you know, by the mise en the directing by the on set. But then no, I tried this song to me was very emotional, so I just tried to. It's just a shot, reverse shot, but very only like two shots, you know. There's not and it's I tried to not do to stay on with them and not cut too much because I figured it was important to see once again their emotions or Rita's fear, and there are all these little images of Rita which terrify Rita, like a bath of blood, or Manitas with Emilia with the golden teeth Manitas had before, and all these little shots that are like, once again, it's more instinctive, I think, and it's more like always trying to be the character, to be in their head, like like any editor would do, I guess. You know, I think we all do the same way, you know. You'll tell me, but that's the to me it's the only way, because I don't know any rules. I don't know the rules because I haven't been to film school, and I don't really want to know the rules. I know there are some, but I don't want to apply them, even if yes, I do know them now, I guess, but I don't want to apply them. I want to just leave my feelings do what they want. It's my feelings are cutting movies, not me.
I love this scene because I think people often don't realize that editing is sometimes at its most beautiful when it's the most simple,
Exactly. I
you know,
agree.
and the most intimate. And I feel that a lot of people think of action and big, you know, big movies, or that's where you notice editing, but sometimes subtlety and simpleness are the most beautiful ways a scene can
Yeah.
be edited.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I don't like cuts that show, you know, that I don't. I like when you can't, you don't. I like it when you don't see the editing. I think, oh, you don't. That's to me, that's a good cut. Is a cut that you don't see, you don't notice, or I don't, you know. So that's what I try to do, and
What did you love about cutting this movie? Did you have something that sticks out in your mind about
well,
the
I
project?
love. Yeah, what I loved is that to me it's. Of all Jacques' movie, to me, it's the boldest one. You know, it's really, this one is really kind of crazy in a way, and it mixes all these genres, and it's singing, it's dancing, it's like we were often when we were doing it, we were like, what are we doing, you know? And it's also what I like is like, yeah, it's I loved cutting the musical scenes because it's very joyful, you know, and it's great to have to cut people dancing. I've never done a musical before, so it was a great pleasure to cut the musical parts, and especially the dancing part, because I love dance. Although I'm not a dancer myself, but I really love it.
She she's a delight, and I'm glad she did that for us. I wish she could have been here in person.
I mean, she's a legend where I'm coming from.
That's awesome. And you were laughing when she said, "I don't follow rules." What was your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, she's French. I mean,
okay, I see where this is coming from.
yeah. But she was so right. I'm so happy that she talked about the editors being booted off projects. Because it is a problem that we're having too, all across the globe, I'm guessing, here too. But I don't know, I love her so much.
She's delightful. And she told me that there were 16 songs in the movie. I don't know how many you had in Wicked. Do you have a count for Wicked Part 1?
No.
Something like that. Something similar, probably. But yeah, it's definitely a different structure than what you've got. She told me that she had 2 assistants, and she had a third that came in because one of her assistants broke their leg or something and had to take some time off. But so a much more smaller, more intimate crew, and she was on the project for a year. So, oops, sorry about that. Yeah, much smaller of a situation. You heard why I like that clip and the intimacy of that moment, and the same with
It's
your...
so difficult to cut a scene like that. I mean, it's just it's insurmountable trying to keep the scene, the audience involved with the scene, and then have 2 characters singing to each other and have it build and feel as dramatic as it does. And it's just really daunting. And she just does it so effortlessly. And I love the fact that she says there is no rules, because I think that's as all of us as editors, I think we're just trying to challenge ourselves to be inspired by past work, but also like how can we refresh and do something different and involve the audience. But I just marvel at that clip. It's just really so beautifully done.
Yeah, it's much like what you were trying to accomplish in yours, where you bring this spectacle into 2 characters, and you're just locking eyes between these 2 characters, and that's magic movie making to me. I believe your movie, Nick, has a lot of. It doesn't have the music, but it has a lot of looks and silence in the way that you constructed your movie.
Yeah. I mean, and it was, when I first met Edward, I'd read the script and I loved it and thought it was really interesting. And so when I first went to talk to him, we were just sort of chatting about the film, and I said to him, when I read this, I thought about the Parallax View and all the President's Men, all those great sort of paranoid thrillers of the 70s. And he was like, what? And he was like, this was his, sort of inspiration for it as well. So we really bonded on that. And that was the approach, was really to try and, to aspire to those films, to aspire to that sort of rigor in the form of it, and just being able to be very, very precise about, not revisiting a shot, a setup more than once if we can avoid it. And just, holding the shots longer and waiting till the final impulse to cut, for that reaction, and, not being afraid to sort of play, lines in the back of Ralph Fiennes' head for 30 or 40 seconds. And that was the approach, and the clip, are we going to show the clip now?
We're going to show the clip, yeah.
The clip is, I guess, a bit of context, is it's quite a key sequence because it's the first main candidate, or the front runner. He gets, I suppose he gets, taken down and is not going to be a front runner. And it's also key because the man Ralph Fiennes plays is in charge of this conclave, and it's his first sort of step across the threshold of getting involved. He didn't want to get involved in the politics and so forth, but this is the first, sort of step across that threshold into, not meddling, but, sort of, getting involved.
All right, well, he's teed up the clip nicely, so let's play the clip for Conclave.
Thomas, listen to me, please. I sensed the presence of the Holy Spirit this morning, I swear it. I am ready to take this burden. Does a single mistake 30 years ago disqualify me? Thomas, please, I was a different man. Please, I beg you, do not use this to ruin me.
Joshua, that thought's not worthy of you. Shinumi will say nothing to protect her son, and I am bound by the vows of the confessional.
So I still have hope?
No. There is no hope. After such a public scene, there will be rumors, and you know what the Curia is like. Nothing terrifies our colleagues more than the thought of yet more sexual scandals. I am more sorry than I can say. You will never be Pope. You must begin again. But you are a good man. I know you to be a good man, and you will find a way to atone.
Will you pray with me?
Yes, of course.
Testor Christum Dominum, qui me judicaturus est, me eum eligere, quem secundum Deum judico eligi debere.
Testor Christum Dominum, qui me judicaturus est, me eum eligere, quem secundum Deum judico eligi debere.
Testor Christum Dominum, qui me judicaturus est, me eum eligere, quem secundum Deum judico eligi debere.
I risultati del quinto scrutinio sono i seguenti. Cardinale Tremblay, 40 voti. Cardinale Tedesco, 34 voti. Cardinale Bellini, 13 voti. Cardinale Lawrence, 11 voti. Cardinale Adeyemi, 9 voti. Cardinale Benitez, 6 voti. Fratelli, qui si conclude il quinto scrutinio. Poiché nessun candidato ha ottenuto la maggioranza necessaria, le votazioni riprenderanno domani mattina.
A very powerful clip.
Thank you.
And I think your editing is a great illustration how very often in your movie, less is more. You are bold in holding on shots longer than I would have the courage to hold. But it's masterful. And one of the movies I thought back on, which I don't know if you've been probably, a lot have been mentioned, but I just think of 12 Angry Men by Sidney Lumet. I just remember that and how powerful that was, and this is, kind of the modern day version of it. But talk about your style of editing, and whether it was your choice or whether it was something you worked with the director to achieve.
Well, I mean, first of all, 12 Angry Men was, in my mind often, when I was cutting the film. I think, Edward...
Can you guys hear Nick okay?
Yeah,
or does he need to be a little bit?
No, okay. Is this better? Yeah, but I think, Edward and I, our tastes are quite aligned in terms of, how we want to approach these things, So that was, and in terms of this sequence in particular, we had these quite surreal images at the end of the men sitting alone in the Sistine Chapel, and there isn't really a logic to them, and so we needed to find a way to embed those in, and I think part of it was at the beginning of the sequence. We had these 4 separate scenes, but I remember watching the dailies and seeing this scene just before he asks him, "Will you pray with me?" There's this doorway. And he's framed in the doorway, and I remember looking at that thinking, that's such a weird point of view. Why did he shoot that? It's from the bathroom. But it gave me, as I'm sure the guys will say, sometimes you get a clue like that when you're looking at the rushes. There's just an interesting shot. And that was a clue to me, and that gave me the idea to cut from that to the next scene quite aggressively, to that huge close-up of him watching Adeyemi take the next vote, knowing that he was never going to be Pope. And it just created this interesting sort of mixture of him looking back and what he's done, but also being able to create an interesting transition that prepared you for these quite surreal images of the men with the the votes being counted over the top of them. So yeah, that was that's how it started with that sequence, and obviously the wonderful score from Volker Bertelmann as well, helped sort of bind it together. But yeah, so much when we were editing the film, it was always about, Edward would talk about what's the impulse, why are we cutting, And so, I would sometimes put the first cut of a scene together, and, he would it's far too many cuts, And we did spend a lot of time, and we'd have scenes and we'd have great fun just distilling. So we'd say, okay, there's 5 cuts in this scene, how can we get it down, even further, And I think, dialogue scenes are some of the hardest to cut, because it's sort of, and our approach to it and being very sort of deliberate and withholding the cuts, it's sort of like a double-edged sword, because sometimes the place to cut is really apparent, because it's just the impulse and the motivation. You need to see, Ralph Fiennes react to this moment. But if it doesn't work for some reason, for a technical reason, or there's just something not quite right, it can be sort of quite challenging to, so that was the approach, and we weren't able to do that all the time, because you have to be, we wanted to try and maintain that rigorous approach, but also keep the pace up and make it thrilling and entertaining, and so much of it was about, the transitions between scenes, not, we did a lot of that point of view stuff, of, one character at the end of the scene just looking off, and then you cut to a reverse shot in the next, in the subsequent scene, just to keep it as taut as possible.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty bold choice when, he asks, will I ever be Pope? And Ralph Fiennes says no. And to not cut to reaction when Ralph Fiennes says no to you is really a bold choice.
Yeah, and we did have, there was, definitely some people who said, let's see the reaction. But in a way, the scene, whose scene is it, and that's the choice that you always got to ask yourself. And, yes, from a plot point of view, it is Adeyemi's scene, because, he is no longer a candidate. But, from a story point of view, from this character's journey of faith and, finding his way through this, it's his scene as well. So, you just, be bold. But, Edward is great, and he helps me with those things. And, in terms of, he'd always say to me, let's test the limit, push it further. And you go 6 frames further, and you go, no, it's way too long. So, but there was a lot of that back and forth. And we did, that scene, there were definitely more cutty versions of that sequence, and the dialogue in particular. But, as editors know, you just, you keep working and working until, somebody tell you to stop. Or I always think you run out, I think films eventually start to reject ideas, when you try something and it's like, definitely doesn't work. So that's when you know you got to stop.
Yeah, well, I always say you often have to break a scene in order to know when it's working. Like you go too far and it's not working as well. So sounds like that. Tell us how you got involved with this project.
Well, the producer, Tessa Ross, I'd worked with before, and I'd loved working with her, and she had put me in touch with Edward, had sent the script, and I read it, and I thought this was really interesting look behind the curtain of this process. And I love films where you see a lot of process, and just things happening. So I was interested in that, and I'd seen, I hadn't seen All Quiet. Edward's previous film hadn't been released. But I'd seen Patrick Melrose, which is an amazing television series that he had made, and I thought, this guy's really interesting. And so we met and spoke, and we connected over our love of Alan Pakula, and that was how we started. That was his approach, and I wanted the challenge of that. Let's try and do something that we can be a bit bold with in terms of the cutting. So
you met in person, not the dating Zoom that Myron had.
No, we had a dating Zoom for sure. Yeah, no, we didn't meet in person, and actually I didn't meet him until during production. They were in Rome and I was in London editing, but I did go over a few times at the weekend. So the first time I met him was beside physically was beside the monitor, and he was in the middle of shooting a scene.
So did you go for the entire shoot or just for a portion of the shoot?
Back and forth a few times. So I always like to send director scenes during production, sort of whenever they're ready. So I would do that, and then we'd catch up over a few weekends. I would go over and we'd sit in his apartment and we'd look through things and discuss, and and then obviously he came back to London when we wrapped, and got stuck into the editing. And the interesting thing about Edward is he is so interested in detail. So sometimes when you start a pass or a cut of the film, you maybe watch the assembly and start working. We didn't watch the assembly, and we started fine cutting really from the start, which to me I was I sort of couldn't believe we were going into so much detail. But what the brilliant thing that did was that I found that you were so focused on the detail that when you came round to watching your pass of the film, you'd sort of set aside the part of your brain that was thinking about the overall story. And so it was really fresh. And as editors, that's the hardest thing sometimes, is to, when you watch the film for the 20th time, is, being objective about it. So that was a really great sort of learning thing for me during the process.
So the music, as you mentioned before, was a huge part of this movie, and I love this score. I absolutely love this score. But I read or heard something that you actually don't do a lot of temping while you cut. Talk about that process and how music eventually becomes a part of the movie.
Yeah, I tend not to. Obviously I think there are some sequences that you need to. But I tend not to. I like to see if the scenes can stand up on their own and without the music. And actually, in particular, this film was very difficult to temp. I'd worked with Volker before, and he had give me this hard drive with 20,000 pieces of music on it. We sort of tried, and we didn't want to go too far into religious music, and we didn't want to go too far into a traditional film score. Edward is very keen that he always says, our first meeting about music, he said, Volker, I want you to destroy the images, that's what he said. So he really likes it to sit against the picture. And so we did try some temp, and we just couldn't find the right thing. And then eventually Volker came on and started to, he'd give us little toolboxes of sounds, and then I would sort of roughly, Edward and I would place them and sort of create a cue, and then we'd send them back, and then he would send something back, more polished, and it continued like that. But he's a brilliant composer, and just is always interested in pushing it as much as he can, outside of the norm.
Did you have a favorite scene that you enjoyed cutting in this particular movie?
don't know. I mean, that one, I like that sequence. You know, that's why
why you chose it, yeah.
selected it. But I mean, and the voting sequences, you know, they were a lot of fun. The ballot sequences, in terms of, you know, he was very meticulous in the storyboarding of those scenes because he wanted them to be very different each time. So, and that was, I'd never worked with storyboards before, so it was really interesting for me. You know, I come from documentary, so it was usually, you just get handed a load of rushes and you go and figure it out. But this was the first time that I'd used storyboards, and it was really great place to start. And then, of course, you go through and you change it, and yeah. But, you know, so yeah, they were a lot of fun, and they were just fun being able to, you know, the first voting sequence we played out very slow and almost in real time. And then, you know, the subsequent ones, that, you know, that gives you permission to shortcut them and overlap dialogue and, you know, go forward and back in time. So I really enjoyed those. But also just, you know, the dialogue scenes, you know, how lucky am I to have Ralph Fiennes, you know, in your dailies? It's just, you know, you can just watch him. So, yeah, I mean, it was such a cool thing to have him, you know, as your actor.
Yeah, amazing performances. I mean, all these movies, amazing performances to play with. How many shooting days did they take to make this movie?
8 weeks.
8 weeks?
Yeah, 8 weeks. And then we edited, well, in total, as Juliette was saying, I was through right until the end of the mix. So I think it was 10 months in total, something like that. And
nice.
Yeah, we were done.
And you did stay through the end of the mix?
Yes, I did.
Good.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, we seem to have to fight for that these days. And how many days did The Brutalist shoot? I know it's not very many.
Well, no. Ilka, how many days was it? 31? 2? 32. A whole 32 days.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we also used restraint, as you guys did. I mean, it's a film that was with a budget of 10 million, and our post was actually, well, on the way here. I think it was yesterday that we finally delivered the film.
Wow.
So we've been on it since then. Before we came here, we rechecked the DCP. So.
Wow. So total duration that you were on the project was
2 years.
2 years, wow. Because you did Monkey Man in the middle of this, or somehow squeezed that in, right?
Yes, that happened too. No, well, Monkey Man is a different and troubled project too. In terms of how long that went, that was a 10-year one. I don't know why I get these, honestly. It's like, yeah, we came on Monkey Man, and we came back for the mix when we were doing the grade for The Brutalist. So yes, there was some overlapping of the two, but we cut it before The Brutalist actually started shooting.
And were you on location with The Brutalist, or no?
Yes, Ilka was cutting. It was a two-man team for this whole project, so whole two. So Ilka was cutting the assembly, and I went to set a lot because they were shooting in Budapest. We live in Budapest, and because we shot on film. So a lot of communication was needed, because a lot of people aren't used to shooting film, and this was special because we were using VistaVision, which is, I don't know if you know, the film runs sideways and not from down up, and it's 8-perf, so it was a special thing to handle this, and I come from a background of knowing how to use film.
And you have to keep those labs open in Budapest.
Yes, I mean, I really have to keep them open. So I was on set a lot, but mostly for technical, less about what is needed to be shot or not shot. But yeah, what was the question?
How did you get introduced to Brady?
Well, okay, that was 10 years ago. I did his first feature. Which he also shot in Hungary, and he was shopping around for editors in Europe, and somebody just said, look around in Hungary, and he said, well, I know this guy called Cornel Mendruța, who's the longtime director who picked me out of film school to get his feature back when, and he said, I want that guy's editor. And so we met and we clicked instantly. He's a film buff, I'm a film buff, so that wasn't hard, and we've been friends ever since. I mean, then we cut that film in Paris. He had a newborn child, Ada, at that point. I had kids already, so it was a very familiar affair.
Daycare in the cutting room,
with
maybe?
a newborn, yeah.
Do you want to set up your clip?
Yes, this clip, I chose this clip primarily because of what the power of editing can do. It's not necessarily why, what I would show if I would want to show something of this film specifically, but what is our power at the end of the day. And that's all I'm going to say.
It's interesting because that was going to be one of my questions. So let's play the clip of The Brutalist.
You look a mess. I would expect your Elizabeth to be taking better care of you.
The years have been difficult.
For us all. For us all. Where the hell is he?
I'm sure he'll be along in a minute. He lives in the mountains. Takes time.
This is why I never do business with Italians. They're the spics of Europe.
Ciao Laszlo, amico mio.
He's right here, now. Ciao, Razio.
Finally, darling.
Che bello. Mr. Van Buren.
Orazio, prendi un caffè veloce e poi andiamo, eh?
Hey, Dada.
What happened to his hand?
Dangerous work.
Tu sei tenace, Mr. Laszlo.
We're on the wrong shoes for this little trek. Do you mind if I take your arm?
Step over step, you will be all right. Sai, io non vedo più molti di quelli di prima della guerra. Comunque io non sono sorpreso di vederti qui ora. In un certo senso tu già sapevi che sarebbe andato tutto per il meglio. Perché tu sei testardo. E anche io lo sono. Non ho mai abbandonato questa terra. Perché tu sei testardo. E anche io lo sono. Non ho mai abbandonato questa terra. Sono partito solo una volta, 20 anni fa, per Giulino Azzano, per colpire e percuotere il corpo di Mussolini con queste stesse mani. Noi qui, io, i miei compagni, siamo anarchici. Abbiamo fatto la resistenza. Nessuno conosce queste valli come noi. Abbiamo combattuto e catturato molti membri dell'esercito nazionale repubblicano e li abbiamo rinchiusi qui in queste cave. Alcuni colpiti con queste stesse pietre.
is beautiful, no?
It is beautiful. Exactly as you describe, Laszlo. Extraordinary.
Se voi volete, il marmo sarà estratto qui in un mese e sarà pronto e finito per voi ad aprile. I'm so happy to see you again.
I am happy to see you, old friend.
Such a life, darling.
Many years, and we are still here. Ci piace? Ci piace? This is magic. Thank you.
Laszlo, darling, there will be a big party tonight. I remember how much love and party. Yeah.
So I happen to love a good home remodel, and I've been to a lot of granite yards. I've just never been to one like this. It's a beautiful clip. I love this clip, and I think it's actually very sensual the way they touch and feel the granites. But and your cutting to reveal scale is really interesting. Like the fact that you cut with an empty frame and let these gentlemen walk into frame. So this surprise of the scale is part of the enjoyment of the movie and the edit. So talk about why you chose this clip and what it means to you. And the power of editing, I had that as one of my questions that I wanted to ask everybody. Talk about the power of editing.
I mean, this was traditionally scripted. This was supposed to be a normal dialogue scene. But when they went there, they started shooting. I mean, they saw the location and started just pointing the camera and getting these beautiful wide shots with the VistaVision camera. We're like, yeah, we're going to start off with this. I mean, it was supposed to be just a cut from the bed to them at the cafe, to just have the dialogue of the oratio, just walking up and then them saying, okay, like, this is going to be the piece of marble that we're going to make the what is the word? What did they make out of the marble? The altar. Thank you. On that having problems. So yeah, that was supposed to be the scene where we're like, okay, we're going to go crazy on this one. And we thought that we were going to be the ones that are going to be told fuck you by the audience, but we didn't. I mean, this has been brought up as one of the scenes that people like most. I mean, the Italians went wild for it. They really loved it, so you can insult Italians openly, and they won't kill you. And it's new experiences with this film everywhere.
And so how many iterations did it take for you to get to this version, if it was
This
scripted
was actually
normally?
the first. This was first run. I mean, this was the idea to, already when it came into the edit, like, Brady, I'm going to show you something that you're going to hate me for. He didn't. He actually liked it. So this is first pass of this scene. We obviously worked a lot with the sound team. Daniel created this fabulous music at the end that came in. We didn't have that. But it was this.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so the editing of the opening montage came first, and then the music augmented your editing?
No, well, yes, to some certain extent. Daniel had a lot of cues that he was actually giving us before the shoot, during the shoot, and during the edit. So he kept feeding us music. It wasn't two scenes. It was just music. So that music, I mean, we butchered it a little bit, and then he fixed it, and it's beautiful. But no, that music we had. I mean, the rhythm of it, let's just say that.
Yeah, it's a luxury to get music early on in our process. Often we don't have that till much, much later, except if it's a musical. So it's kind of fun that you're working alongside somebody who's thinking.
I mean, how Daniel worked on this film is insane to me. I mean, he lived it and was breathing it. He was on set. He was next to us. So he was constantly present during the whole process. I mean, the first shot of the film was pre-recorded and was played in actually on set. So the rhythm of how the camera moved would try to match what the music is. And then we edited it, but that's a different story.
Yeah, it's wonderful. What was your average length of dailies that came in every day? Because you have the shorter shoot date and the longest run time, so.
Yes, we do. It was 100,000 meters at the end, or 98 or something like that, and I don't remember the math. I mean, we basically.
But did you get was it like 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day of dailies?
2, I think it was 2. It was 2 hours. 2 hours of we actually got 4K scans, direct 4K scans next day.
So Brady had to be very efficient in his 31 days of shooting. He had to cover a lot of ground and not get a lot of takes.
Yes. Yes, that is true.
Did that pose problems?
What do you mean?
That's what we do, fix problems, right? Nick, how much material did you get every day?
I think, yeah, probably the maximum would have been 2 hours, and then Edward likes to be covered, but he doesn't shoot a lot, But so yeah, I would say anything, from an hour to 2 hours a day.
How about you, Myron? What was your average? We never did get the mic fixed.
Ed Marsh, our VFX editor, said it was 250 hours total.
Total?
Yeah, it was a lot. John shoots a lot. He shoots a lot of cameras. He just likes to he says he likes to capture butterflies. And it gives me a lot of butterflies to play with, and a lot of spices. he uses that analogy a lot. Like, he gives me a lot of spices and ingredients to make a full meal. So, yeah, just a lot of footage pouring in every day for 8 months.
Right. And so, David, how I had the pleasure of working with Adrian Brody. I think it was 7 or 8 years ago now, and it just I mean. The plethora of performances on these films is wonderful. What you had,
it was
thank God
amazing.
you had strong actors for this very fast shooting of a project.
I mean, the combo of Guy and Adrian. I remember just getting those days, and I can't believe what I'm witnessing here. I mean, it was an incredible pleasure to see, and you might say that you're seeing all the dailies with our runtime, but no, there's more in there. And just picking the performances of which one to cut in, I mean, just the outtakes were great too. And that we didn't cut in, so this could have been longer.
So it's not common to have an intermission in the middle of a movie. Was it scripted? When did that become part of the discussion?
No, it was always scripted. We had that discussion very early on. I mean, we knew that we wanted to make a long film, and Brady knew that they wanted to make this film long. They even cheated with the margins and everything when they submitted it to financiers. So yes, there was always a plan. The length of the intermission was always a question: what exactly are we going to see on it? This photo was supposed to be VFX and everything, but we didn't. At the end, we just left it as is, and the countdown was, I think, Ilka's idea. And if you sit in, and the music that Daniel created for it is, this is actually screened, so the labs loved us. because it's a complete reel, just the intermission. But the runtime was the only question of how long it should be, and then where do we place it? Until the very last moment, it was frame accurately the middle of the film.
I was going to ask about that. It seemed pretty close to the middle.
Yes, it was until our credits started growing, because it started growing. It was frame accurately the middle of the film.
Wow. And was the length a discussion while you were working? I mean, did you have people?
What do you think?
Yeah, but I mean, it sounded like Brady wanted it to be that. Does he? I mean, and I assume you supported in that decision. And did you fight with things you wanted to try to speed up, or how did it?
We did cut a shorter film that none of you will ever see. Just so we can be sure of ourselves that this is the choice that we want to make, and have the ammo if anybody comes up saying, cut an hour out of it, which they did come, they did ask, we didn't do it.
Right, it's like I said, you have to break something to know what it is you want to make, and I've heard Brady say that he, is an advocate for wanting to allow filmmakers to make the movie they want to make and not be governed by what the studios tell them.
It is our movie to mess up. That's the point. And this was the point with this film, too. Like, we knew it was going to be long. We knew that we were going to get bashed for it. But this is what we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And talk about the second half. It's definitely got a different vibe to the movie once you especially get to the last 45 minutes. Talk about, did it feel like you were making a different movie, and how did you approach that?
Yes, it was very, it was scripted differently too, but we wanted to change styles. Again, the reason that I showed you this clip, because with the 3.5 hours, you have the luxury to do whatever you want. And the way that we jump time at the second part of the film, because the first part has anybody not seen it? Hands up.
Couple of people.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of you've seen it.
Good job,
Damn.
everybody. You did your homework.
So the first part of the film is pretty linear. He comes, and then we meet our antagonist, our protagonist, and set everything up. And the second part is when the wife comes, and Felicity seen that at the train station, and we just turn it on from that point onwards, and we start jumping time, we start jumping styles. There's a lot of playfulness in that second half. All to the very end, where we're using Betacam footage for the Italian piece. Musically, there was also we had the chance to rise to the occasion of the very end. So that was again meant to be, but we played so much with that.
Yeah, it seems like there's probably more choices about how to jump time and move it along. But
we used, that was partially scripted, but Ilka found these great archival pieces that basically put a frame to the first part of the film. So it starts off with that. It doesn't actually start off with that, because that comes a bit later, but and it ends with that. So the last scene before we go into the intermission, we combined 3 scenes basically into one, and wanted to push the audience through so you get out on a high, because we kind of didn't want you to go home during the intermission.
Well, it's a beautiful movie. I think it's just beautifully shot, and I do love the music on this movie too. It's fascinating to learn that you got to work with the composer while you were cutting. All right, we have to move it along a little bit, so we're going to jump to Anora, another movie that is heavy in cigarette smoking. Adrian I think, didn't have a cigarette in his mouth. So let's jump into the clip of Anora, and then we'll talk a little bit about it after we see it.
3 carats.
What about 4 or 5 or 6?
Today this could be the greatest day of our lives.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish her all the days of your life?
I do.
And do you, Honora, take this handsome gentleman standing before you to be your best friend, your protector, your husband? Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish him all the days of your life?
Say yes.
Oh, fuck yeah, I do. It is now my great honor to now pronounce you as husband and wife. You may seal your promises
Shine
with a
the
kiss.
light on our greatest days. Light up, shine the light on our greatest days. Light up. Tonight this could be the greatest night of our lives. Let's make a new start.
It's my wife, man.
Future is ours to find. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it?
I am American bitch!
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
So this is for real.
Yeah, it's for real. What do you mean?
Because if it is, I gotta stop letting the high rollers in. They're stealing my best girls. Come here.
You're so lucky. Oh my god, I know. Thank you. You hit the lotto, bitch. Girls, Powerball. Oh my god, are you gonna try? Stop, you don't. You'll come over for dinner, right? You know, I've been thinking about a honeymoon, and I think we should do it at Disney World because that's been like my dream since I've been a little girl. Yeah. You know those suites where it's like the Disney princess theme? Cinderella. Yes, fucking Cinderella. You know me so fucking well, babe. Bye, Annie. You better visit us, bitch. Oh, of course I will, Jenny. Hi, babe. Caught you will? Seems I did, didn't I? I give it 2 weeks, bitch. Oh, Diamond. Oh, sweetie. You know, I really hope you find your happiness one day. I really
you find a fucking plastic surgeon.
the fuck?
Okay, Annie.
Play in my fucking face again, bitch.
Get out. Done.
You stay
Relax.
jealous, babe. Stay jealous, honey. Jealousy is a disease. Remember that, Diamond? I'm just gonna go chill in my mansion or whatever. You know, no big deal.
Shine the
Hey.
light.
I love it that we're sorted by budget.
You noticed that, huh? This was definitely a crazy movie. Hopefully you guys all got to see it as well. Sean Baker is the director, writer, producer, casting director, and editor. And he's edited all 8 of his movies. It's something that he tried to co-edit once, I heard him say, and he said, I know what I shoot, and I feel like I understand my material the best. So he loves editing. He feels it's half of directing, which I think we would all agree that's the case.
Just so you all know, we gave him shit at the luncheon for editing his own films, and congratulated him because he does a really good job, and I hate him for it, but yes.
Yeah, and as you probably noticed, he loves these really jarring, bold cuts. It throws you into the next scene, and it's not a very common way to edit, but it's effective and powerful. And the other thing that I heard or read is he doesn't like a lot of score, so he doesn't shoot with a lot of that in mind, but he loves source music and he utilizes that as his score. And so if you ever go back and watch this movie or any of his movies, you can really listen to how he uses the score and how he mixes it and it becomes score and source and all those things. He manipulates it. And also to give you distance. Like he does a lot of these docudrama long shots, and so you go from one room to another, and you hear from this club, the music fades off in the distance, so you get a perspective of how far you're walking and moving. It's a really effective way to use music, but it, again, not traditional and clever and unique. His assistant, I believe Matt Miller, is here in the room, so let's give a good big round of applause to Matt. There he is in the middle. And Matt, you can correct me, one of the other things that I had heard about is that Sean, he shoots his movies and then he takes 3 to 4 months off after to decompress. And during this time on this particular movie, he had his assistant, Matt. I don't know if there was more than one of you, but because a third of the movie was shot in Russian and Armenian, he had the assistant subtitle the dailies. So before he started cutting, the dailies were subtitled and prepped for him, which is something that I never heard of. I shot a movie in Lakota once, and I shot it totally blind without even a transcript. So that's a really interesting way to do it. And then when he finally comes into the cutting room, he starts at the beginning, and he very meticulously and thoroughly makes his way through the movie. So he builds the movie over and over and over from the beginning, just to make sure that it's evolving the way that he wants to tell the story. Again, a very untraditional way to make a movie, and I don't know if, I think somebody said they did it that way last year, and I can't remember, for Oppenheimer. It's the only other time I've ever heard of a movie really being constructed from the beginning, because the movie was completely shot by the time the editing was started. So an unusual and different way to put together a project. I've never done that. Have you guys ever done that?
Actually, yes.
And how do you like that?
Just so, I mean, I put together a film, but when the director comes in, we start from the beginning. Because I need to familiarize myself with the footage, so I put it together, but I don't necessarily start showing it to the director or show the film, but then clean slate from the beginning, and as a reference, I have something. So yes, I have a director that does this.
Wow, yeah, it's not very common. Did you guys all see each other's movies? Do you have thoughts about the different, I mean, completely different styles, and that's what I love about
Finally, we
this.
can. No.
Oh, the boxing, cage. We need a cage. No.
Yeah, it's. I'd like to hear from each of you. What is the power of editing to each of you? I mean, your scene is beautifully illustrates that, and it's hard to understand if you don't break down that the talking is happening, but you're not seeing it in sync. Like the simple things tell you that it was constructed in the cutting room.
I mean, sorry to butt in, but just to add to that one thing is, I mean, we're all from the industry here and we're all editors here, but the main problem is nobody actually knows what we do. I mean, even the name editor is incorrect, honestly, if you think about what we actually do on a daily basis on a film, of how long we are on in post of, I mean, literally apart from us in this room and let's say a couple of directors, give them credit, actually don't know what we do. And these type of clips are the ones where you can, that you can see what an editor does, because it's so in your face, but it's so little of what our actual job is. That's the power of editing, is that nobody knows what we do. We're second row, first seat, out of the limelight. You guys, you know, actors, directors, take the blame, fine by us. Let us play with the film, let us be the film. That's what an editing is.
It's both a blessing and a curse, right? You guys have something to add?
What? Yeah, I think, I mean, it's interesting. I think the power of it is, and we've all touched on it, talking about it, our different films, is, and I'm going to quote Joe Walker, who's quoted this, and he says, time is your superpower. And that's what it is. You know, Myron was talking about stretching that moment, and we're talking about the pace of things, and that to me is it. You know, it's moving through time and being able to do it in such a way to tell a story in an exciting way and be provocative as well, you know.
Time but not run time.
Yeah, I remember seeing Rival for the first time and crying at the end watching Joe's work, and that was the power of editing. And I still don't know what I'm doing, so I have no idea what I'm doing. But I know what I feel when I watch the dailies, and I try to remember that when I'm cutting a movie and try to translate that to the audience somehow. I'm still figuring it out. And what's great about editing and filmmaking and storytelling is that it is a process, and you find your way over a long, and, you get inspired, but it's incredible work. It's just so monumental, and every single project, I just feel like I learn more and more about how to use editing to manipulate the audience to feel things, and I'm hoping that in another 10 or 20 years, my body of work will reflect that, and I can move anybody to be inspired to be able to want to be an editor or just a filmmaker, a storyteller. That's all that I care about.
But sometimes we don't want the audience to know that we're manipulating them. Sometimes we do, and I think Sean's editing style is a little more in your face, like he wants you to be aware of the cutting. Or you don't, if you're not in the business, you don't know why, but you feel the jarring nature of it. But a lot of us strive to, on a lot of our projects, not make the editing noticeable and not, we don't want the audience to feel manipulated. We want them to feel it organically, and then we know we've done our job. That's kind of what Juliette was saying in her clip.
Yeah, Debbie Reynolds in Singing in the Rain. Is that what you're saying? That's us?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you guys if there is, was there a piece of advice somewhere along the line in your career where you were given a piece of advice and you just latched onto it, and it's something that you in turn share with those people around you or that work with you, or people like this audience that you'd love to share today? Are there any words of wisdom that you were given early?
I talked about this at Edifest a little bit, but don't do it unless you love it, because it's a really hard job. I know a lot of people aren't working right now, but no one said that that it was going to be easy for artists to make a living. And I've been through many recessions, many strikes, and bubbles popping, and I've gone 8 months to a year not working. But if you want to do it, you got to love it to do it, because it's a really hard job, and but it's also rewarding. If you can get through it, if you can get through the tough times and the tough jobs. I've been fired many times. I've been brought onto films when other people have been fired. It's a tough road, but it's also really when you get to make something. I was fired the last time I worked for Universal. I was fired, and
who hasn't?
I thought I would never work for Universal ever again. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe I've been fired. It's true. I never thought I'd be back, and so, but if you can work through those moments are tough because you take it so personally, and then you realize it is a business. It's not about you, because actually, editing is really subjective, and so somebody can't just say that they didn't do a good job. There was other priorities in that job. So, what I'm saying is, like, stick with it. But you gotta love it. You gotta love it. You have to love it, and otherwise you're in the wrong business. It's a long road. You're staring at 25 years of doing this, and you just have to love it.
A great piece of advice that was given to me, or I read in an interview with the great Sam Osteen, was he said, "Never cut for a line," and that when I was, starting out doing dialogue scenes, I was always trying to, get the, this is an important line. We must see this. We must see this. But that really sort of, it's not. Sometimes you do need to see a line for emphasis, but that sort of unlocked something for me. That it was always you cut for the reaction, not for the line, and that sort of gives you permission to maybe hold the shot a bit longer and not cut back. And that was something that was really helpful to me. That sort of, I was cutting these scenes together and they were just choppy and all over the place. And then you realize, well, I don't actually need to see, every other line or every line that the actor says. So that was really helpful to me.
A lot of people love to give advice, especially to editors, because they don't go up to directors, and we get all the shit at the end of the day, people telling us what's wrong with the film. But actually, the only one that I would say is the most important advice that I would give and have gotten is watch movies, everything. Go back in time, start with the beginning of film. That's what helps you become a great editor, I think. And we're all far from it. We can't have these many movies to watch, but you have to watch the movies.
It's not a bad thing to do. Listen, I know you guys have done many panels on this big award season journey you've been on. We thank you for being with us today. Nick, I read something crazy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you are up for there's 22 different awards that you've been acknowledged, 22 or something crazy like that this year. That's amazing, and thank goodness people are looking out and acknowledging editing, correct? So congratulations to all of you. We wish you the best tomorrow, and we hope you have fun too. Erin.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to ask that you stay seated so that the nominees can leave the auditorium.